Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Pod.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast, guys. I'm your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We are back for another amazing episode this week, guys. Fantasy football, it is a hell of a season this year. Lots of greatness, lots of sorrow. It has been fantastic to watch. And again, having to do these mega bye weeks this week, not the most ideal situation, but it happens, and hopefully you were able to survive it, because I surely was at times able to survive the mega bye weeks, but it is what it is. So we are back, guys. We are into week 13 now. Fantasy football is going through the motions. Things are getting closer and closer to the playoffs. We're like 3 weeks away now for the playoffs this right now. I mean, we have week 13, week 14, and that's it. And then week 14, like, you have another mega bye week to deal with. So things are going to get interesting. And it starts with doing waivers. It starts about getting the right players on your team for the run. Here we go. Unfortunately, no Coach Tyler tonight here. Things didn't work out right. We got a miscommunication, unfortunately. That's kind of my fault. I should have said something earlier. I'm on vacation this week, so things kind of got thrown away from my scheduling timeline this week. But we're going to continue with the show today. We have waiver wires as always on Mondays, but we're also going to go over the Thanksgiving and Black Friday games. A little early preview on those games, because by the time we really get into going over all the games, Thursday will be here. We're not going to go on Thursday. Hopefully, we go Friday in the afternoon or Saturday, and we'll go through the rest of the games. But I wanted to make sure we got these Thursday night games down, and also Black Friday game, and so you have an idea where you should start. So if you're listening now and you want to know about those, you can skip ahead. Probably going to take me 15-20 minutes, go through the episode here and start listening to the Thanksgiving games. But if you also want to hear about the waiver wire pickups, continue listening through. And again, if you're listening live on our YouTube channel, please continue to throw comments into the chat here, and we're more than happy to answer them for you. So let's get started here. Injuries from week 12. There was a lot of injuries this past week here, a lot that we need to kind of go over here. And it kind of just starts off with injuries. And Jatavian Sanders, rookie tight end from the Carolina Panthers, neck injury. He's supposed to be doing okay, but it was a pretty serious neck injury. That's something that likely will probably knock him out for this upcoming week. Dave Montgomery left week 12 with a shoulder injury. Haven't heard anything on it per se yet. Doesn't seem like maybe it's anything major that he's going to force him to miss time, but they are playing on a short week, the Lions, this week, so you never know. Something to keep in mind. Khalif Raymond, wide receiver from the Lions, got a foot injury. There's a good chance he could miss some time. He's usually their punt returner, kick returner. Romeo Doubs left week 12 with a concussion. And as we know about concussions, it's very hard to get those players to play the following week. And the Packers do play on Thursday night, so it could even be a harder chance for Romeo Doubs to be able to play this coming week. You'll probably know by tomorrow, by the time where this episode is live on Spotify and stuff, you'll probably know about Romeo Doubs' injury situation, but he did sustain a concussion. Brock Purdy missed week 12. This was a pretty big thing all week long. He did practice a little bit today, so it is something to keep in mind for him. They don't play until Sunday, so it's something good for hopefully he can be able to kind of make it back, because the 49ers offense was not good last week. Gardner Minshew, shoulder injury, it was collarbone, actually. I'm sorry. Broken collarbone. He is out for the season. Good thing, though, in terms of that, is because Aiden O'Connell is supposedly back and practicing this week, so he might be taking back the starting job again. They also have Desmond Ridder. For Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, he did have a shoulder injury. He's considered week to week. And there were early reports that he could end up missing this game coming up this week here. Brian Robinson Jr. left relatively early in his Commanders game with an ankle injury. And Austin Eckler, concussion. Again, concussions are hard to come back from in a week. especially to pass that. So we could be looking out without maybe Brian Robinson and maybe Austin Eckler. It is something to keep in mind for the upcoming week as we go through the motions of practices and all that stuff. So, but let's get into waiver wire talk here now. Starting off at quarterback this week here, guys. And the top 5 quarterbacks under the 40% mark right now. There's really no one higher. In terms of if you see someone who shouldn't be out there, probably pick him up. Maybe like a Tua is still out there who's been doing pretty well, or Justin Herbert could still be out there. We'll find out tonight how well he does. But the top 5 quarterbacks I have for me personally this week here to look at is starting off the board with Will Levis. Will Levis, since coming back from injury, has averaged pretty much 20 fantasy points per game. It's solid. It's not elite, but it's solid fantasy production here. And he has a really good schedule for the fantasy playoffs and playing much better as a passer right now. Again, something must have clicked in this offense. Maybe he finally bought into the new Brian Callahan's offense here and it's finally starting to develop. Again, remember, he was joining a whole new offense after learning a whole new offense his rookie season. So things sometimes take time to really get the motions. Being able to sit and learn and watch in-game experience from Mason Rudolph must have helped Will Levis out a little bit. He's performing much better than he was in the first half of the season here. And he plays the Commanders, who, again, very up and down secondary still, even though they've played better. Will Levis could be, I think, a really good option this week if you're looking for a quarterback. Again, there's no buys this week, so you might not be looking for a quarterback per se. Derek Carr, another good streaming quarterback this week, plays the LA Rams. We saw the Rams last few weeks here just get destroyed in the passing game, especially on the ground, aka Saquon Barkley. But in the passing game, Derek Carr was looking pretty good with a new regime at the head coaching job, and things are looking a little bit better for Derek Carr. He's definitely worth a good ad. Russell Wilson, it's been kind of an up and down slope with him a little bit, but he does play the Bengals this week, a team who's been really bad at stopping fantasy quarterbacks this year, having back-to-back QB1s over the last 2 weeks here. Cincinnati might be a good team to go out there and for Russell Wilson to beat up on. Drake May wasn't great last week, but he should be able to bounce back against the Colts team that has been very spotty on defense. And Jameis Winston plays Denver this week here. Denver's been a solid team overall, but Jameis Winston kind of continues to show us that no matter what, he's able to fucking toss the ball downfield even against a better defense. Dynasty-wise, I mean, Aiden O'Connell could be out there. Desmond Ridder might be starting for the Raiders. Maybe they go back to Drew Lock. The Giants, Tommy DeVito did not look very impressive. Brandon Allen could get another start for San Fran. He still might be out there in a lot of dynasty leagues there. So just options for you if you're looking for quarterback. Wide receiver, again, top guys like Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears, Tyler Algier, guys that are higher percentage could be worth picking up as depth pieces. But again, there's really not a top guy to go out there and get a running back this week here. So if you're looking for a running back, there's really not. The best of the bunch is likely Jeremy McNichols, Washington Commanders' third running back. Like I mentioned before in the injury updates, Brian Robinson Jr. is dealing with an ankle injury. Austin Eckler had a concussion. So there's a chance that one or both are missing week 13, which will give Jeremy McNichols an opportunity to, see a bigger workload in the offense. We know that the Commanders love to get their running backs involved in the red zone. They play the Titans this week, who have been a team who has a lot of touchdowns to running backs in the recent weeks. First question of the night from Tyler in Rejeff: is Cade Otton and Jaden Reed droppable? Oof. I would still hold on to both of them. I know it wasn't great coming out of the bye. For Cade Otton, I do believe that the Giants are a team that were really good at stopping fantasy tight ends this year. So I would give him another week unless you have a tight end that you trust a lot. If you have one of a few of the top guys, 3 targets. Definitely not a great week from him overall. Again, they were up for most of this game here, so there was reason to kind of lean away from passing the ball as much, and they did obviously have a lot of rushing carries in that game against the Giants. I actually was at that game, and again, there was really no reason for the Bucs to really throw the ball as much. I'd give him another week. Personally, I think one more week to see what this team looks like, more of a neutral game script, maybe a negative game script where they're throwing the ball a little bit more and not forcing it to run the ball. I think Bucky Irving had 12 carries. Rashad White had 12 carries. That usually doesn't happen in most games here. So with Jaden Reed, he's another guy I wouldn't drop now. I think that conversation could have had if there was a right player to go out there and get. But Romeo Doubs is possibly missing this week due to concussion. They play an early week this week. They do play Miami, a team where I think this could be a very back and forth battle. Miami doesn't perform always that great against slot wide receivers here. Jaden Reed hopefully can kind of bounce back. I know it's been tough to start him. He's probably not a must-start option at all right now. He's definitely not. But I wouldn't drop him unless there was an actual person out there to go out there and grab. But Reed could be an interesting sleeper this week for fantasy. That's one thing I have to say. So going back to Jeremy McNichols, again, he's probably the top pickup if you're desperate for a running back. He's the guy to go out there and grab now and hope that one of Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler miss week 13. Amir Abdullah, we don't know what's going on with that Raiders situation here. Alexander Madison and Zamir White both were out last week here. Who knows if they're going to be ready for this week? Amir Abdullah was a big part of that Raiders offense here, seeing 91% of the snaps, seeing a good target share in the offense here, and being very involved in the passing game here. They do play the Chiefs this week here, so they might be relying on having to throw the ball a lot more. Roshan Johnson, kind of, he'll get you a touchdown here and there. Definitely an option of a desperate RB4 play that if you're looking for a guy you have to start. He might be a touchdown or bust kind of guy. If Gus Edwards plays a little bit better in his second game back, maybe he's worth picking up at this point, seeing what that's like. Ray Davis was kind of interesting to see coming off a bye week with Buffalo, if they get that rookie more involved. Let's see, is worth starting. I have to sell. I have Dell and Myers. Lost Minshew. So you're saying is McNichols worth starting over Dell or Myers? Potentially. It depends if one or both of those guys are out. I still like Jacoby Myers. I think he still is going to see a high target share in that offense there. Even without Gardner Minshew, I think Aiden O'Connell can at least get him the ball. It is going to be a little rocky between, Brock Bowers now and all of them. And it might be kind of a fluctuating target share moving forward. But depending on who's out for the Commanders, McNichols could be a potential option if that were the case. But we won't know until probably Thursday or Friday how the injuries and practices play out. Well, at least until Friday, because we'll know you have to know if you're going to start. Oh no, that's someone else. But yeah, you'll have to wait till at least Thursday or Friday to figure that out. Back to Ray Davis. I think there's an opportunity for him to see more work on this offense. There's the unspoken rule of rookies seeing more work following a team's bye week here. And Ray Davis has flashed in the first part of the season here, wondering if they maybe get him more involved. James Cook hasn't really run the ball that well in the last few weeks here, so maybe they get Ray Davis more involved. Other options, Tank Bigsby, maybe Blake Corum, Trey Benson, who's a big guy I had last week, but who knows what's going on with that. Again, running back wise, there's not a lot of great pickups. And like I said, Dynasty, Amir Abdullah, Ty Johnson, it's not a great time to go out there and look for a running back to be plug and start like early in the season, unfortunately. And there's no injury right now that's going to take that away. Kenny Gainwell might be another option to kind of just stash on your bench. He might be worth picking up in fantasy right now if you're looking for somebody, because he's been seeing more involved in the last few weeks here, and they might get him more involved and kind of stop, even though Saquon had a lot of carries, might stop getting him a billion carries every single week. They might start using Gainwell a little bit more now that they're getting closer to the end of the season here. Wide receiver wise, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Wanda Robinson are definitely guys over that 40% mark that it could be worth picking up for fantasy. But my top guys under the 40% mark this week here, Demario Douglas. Again, it's not pretty, but it's solid 50 yards in every game, basically, since Drake May's taken over at quarterback. It's solid production. It's a floor play of like 8 or 9 fantasy points with hopefully a potential touchdown in the next coming weeks here. They do play the Rams, much better matchup. MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, back-to-back games of like 15 plus fantasy points. It obviously seems like he fits in that deep threat role that Derek Carr and the Saints offense wish they had with Rashad Shaheed since he's been out with injury. But MVS has been, a big role, has had a big role in this offense. Noah Brown, coming off a 7 for 71 game here, continues to be a very solid asset in fantasy. And again, they have a matchup this week here that is somewhat favorable. I would be willing to take my shot against the Titans. If you're looking for a wide receiver stash, if you're kind of struggling out as your flex spot right now, Noah Brown has been putting up solid production. Same goes with Nick Westbrook-Akine. The man's got 6 touchdowns in the last 5 games. Like, he is performing for this Titans offense here. Again, he's not going for 120 and a touchdown every week, but he'll get you a touchdown. He'll get you 60 yards one week. Like, he's getting you fantasy reduction if you need it as a flex play. He's another option worth grabbing onto. Again, none of these guys are must grabs, but they're their insurance policies if you're looking for flex plays, especially with another bye week coming up in week 14. I think the Titans are actually on bye in week 4. No, they're not. Again, a lot of these guys could be helping you out. Maybe not this week, but in week 14 when you have another mega bye. And Devon Veal, rookie wide receiver from the Denver Broncos, playing very well in the slot, seeing a lot more work in this offense week in and week out now. They play the Browns this week, who, again, as long as it's not a snow game, have a very weak secondary. So, Bo Nix should be able to have another really good week in fantasy coming up, and Veal has done some decent production in the recent weeks. David Moore's coming off a big game. Adam Thielen, again, Panthers wide receivers. I don't completely trust them. If they're in dynasty leagues, you want to go out and get David Moore and put him on your team and see maybe if something happens with him. But again, there's really no plug and play, have to start flex option in wide receiver either. But there's a lot of guys who have flex appeal that can produce it depending on what your team lineup looks like. So, all right. And then last but not least for waiver wire this week here, tight ends. Again, go out there and get Zach Ertz. He's been playing very well as of recent weeks. Hunter Henry had a bounce back week finally here. 2 guys in that higher percentage to go after and get. So the guys under the 40% mark is, for me, the top guy is Noah Gray. Unfortunately, it's tight ends right now. They don't have the Jonnu Smiths anymore. He's relatively owned now. But Noah Gray has had back-to-back games of 2+ touchdowns. He's had 10+ fantasy points in 3 of the last 6 games here now. And now he plays a Raiders team who, again, has allowed production to 2 tight ends this year. So if Noah Gray can get you, 4 for 24 and a touchdown this coming week here, that's solid production if you need it for your tight end, if you've been struggling with tight end. Theo Johnson, he had 3 catches for 26 yards this past week here. Good matchup this coming week here against the Cowboys. Willing to take a risk on him if you're desperate for a tight end. Mike Gesicki's gotten his, ownership dropped over the last few weeks here. Still another tight end you could be worth picking up if you need someone. Hopefully there's better weeks for him ahead. But again, it has been a struggle with him the last few weeks. And Luke Schoonemaker, if Jake Ferguson is out again, this Dallas offense just continues to run through a tight end. And Luke Schoonemaker had a really solid week this past week here, and they play the Titans. So he's another option for dynasty, any redraft league right now. If you're looking for a Luke Schoonemaker, he could be worth picking up right now in fantasy. So. All right. Well, that is the end of our waiver wire segment, guys. But don't hang around here. We're going to go through the Thanksgiving and Black Friday games real quickly as well. Yeah, I just got to pull up another screen, unfortunately, here. So let's see here. All right. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Sorry, guys. Right. Slideshow. Here we go. All right. So starting with the Thanksgiving games, the 1:00 game is Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. This is the second best game of the entire weekend, probably. Hopefully it should be a really good game here in Detroit, but who knows? Quarterback-wise, you're looking at least Jared Goff being a really high QB2, probably a QB1. He always does well in domes. He always does very well at home. If Dave Montgomery is to miss this game due to his injury situation, maybe they throw the ball a little bit more. Jared Goff is in for a really solid day. Caleb Williams, he's kind of hard early on to kind of get a feel on where he's at right now. And Detroit has done not so great against quarterbacks in the recent weeks here. But if Caleb Williams gets pressured way too much, he might kind of get that feel. We saw early on the season when he's getting pressured, he doesn't throw the ball very well. He needs time in the pocket. He needs to be able to make throws on the run a little bit better. And Caleb Williams, for me, is a struggle with all the quarterbacks playing this week here. I had him as a low-end QB2 last week. He overperformed that situation. But again, I'm going back to a low-end QB2. I'm not overly hyped to have him on the road in Detroit, a team who, again, they're a defense that wants to make problems for the quarterback. So for me, Caleb's more of a low-end QB2, better for Superflex leagues than a 1 QB league. Running backs, again, Jahmyr Gibbs, RB1, mid RB1. Dave Montgomery, if he plays a low-end RB1. The Bears, have been a weaker team against running backs this season. Gibbs and Montgomery have been almost an RB1 or at least top 15 running back each and every single week almost this year. So I'm going to continue to bet on that on a short week here at home. So I like both Gibbs and Montgomery. DeAndre Swift's okay, mid RB2. It just depends on how much work he gets in the offense here. He had a pretty steady workload last week. Love for him to get cross the end zone this coming week here. Roschon Johnson is a boomer bust RB4. Wide receivers, again, I like DJ Moore the best. Wide receiver ones against the Detroit Lions have performed relatively well in fantasy this coming season here. And we saw that with Michael Pittman Jr. against Detroit last week, having a really solid outing overall. I think DJ Moore could put up 6 for 70 yards in this game here. So a nice low-end wide receiver 2, someone who hopefully can get a touchdown this week. Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, both high-end wide receiver fours. They have upside as flex options, but again, their floor can be very weak here. We saw Keenan Allen have a really big week this coming week, but again, it hasn't been consistent this season. Again, the week before that, it was Rome Odunze. So these guys are they have the upside, but it's not consistent. Not someone I want to put my lineup unless I need a big play from someone. Amon St. Brown, wide receiver 1, no issues with him. He should be able to have a bounce back game this coming week here. Chicago has really allowed wide receivers to overperform in fantasy. Jameson Williams, low wide receiver 2. Again, he's been really solid in fantasy. He's got that big playability with Jared Goff here, and he's someone who is in any situation almost guaranteed. If he gets the ball deep, there's a touchdown waiting at the end of his run here. So like both wide receivers from the Lions this week. Tight ends, I'm not a big thrill on the tight ends. Cole Kmet finally had a better game. Really bad over the last month of the season here. Lions have been pretty solid against tight ends, so I'm not really thrilled to go after Cole Kmet this week here, unless it turns into like a shootout game. Sam Laporta, low-end tight end 1. Bears have been a little bit more weaker in recent weeks against tight ends, so Laporta could end up having himself a really solid outing in fantasy. So again, it depends on the target share with Sam Laporta. So to me, it's a little hesitant to start to put him as more of a mid tight end 1, but have him as a low tight end 1 because I think there's could be upside this week, but opportunity obviously knocks when it comes to tight ends. New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, this is not going to be a great game to watch the 4:00 games. Hopefully you're eating dinner at this time so you don't have to watch this game here. But again, the quarterback situation, we're assuming it's Tommy DeVito coming back here. We haven't heard otherwise. Again, it's a better matchup, hopefully, less intense situation that's going on, or have another, week under his belt. Again, get game ready. The new coaching staff might make the offense a little bit more easier for him, allow him to actually air the ball out a little bit more compared to what we were able to see from him this past week. It was not good. Low-end QB2, Cooper Rush. The Giants, I'm telling you right now, the Giants defense has been the only point of consistency for them this season here, and they've been really well against fantasy quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, he had that rushing touchdown, but outside of that, he wasn't able to get a touchdown. They had let up a few big plays, but outside of that, they held Baker pretty well from doing too much here, and it was the run game that really just dominated against the Giants. So Cooper Rush still a QB3 for me, just with everyone back. And again, I might be a little higher on DeVito than most people are. He's probably a QB3 for most people, and he probably should be a QB3, to be honest. If I'm talking about it now out loud, he's probably more of a QB3 than a low-end QB2. Running backs, mid RB2 for Tyrone Tracy Jr. He was solid last week here. Unfortunately, the team kind of fell behind way too early, and it just happened that way. Unfortunately, they had to throw the ball a little bit more. He saw some receiving work, and I still like Tracy's a mid RB2. He just needs to hold on to the damn ball, and that's a really big thing for fantasy football right now. Devin Singletary is a low RB4 desperation play. For the Cowboys, the running back, Rico Dowling, high RB3. I love his receiving ability. Sorry, guys, my dog is wanting to play right now. He's got a real high-end receiving ability in PPR leagues. Should be really solid this week here. Zeke's, again, I put him as a low RB4. Again, both Zeke and Singletary are touchdown or bust kind of guys here for fantasy. Wide receivers, for me, Malik Davis has kind of fallen down a little bit. He's no longer a easy wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 for fantasy. Again, he didn't get targeted until the second half of that Giants game last week here. That can't happen again here. If they're going to continue to keep him under his targets for back-to-back weeks now, that is going to be an issue for fantasy. For me, Neighbors is more of a high-end wide receiver 2, not an automatic top-tier player in fantasy right now. Wan'Dale Robinson's high wide receiver 4. Again, the consistency in targets is what keeps me with him. But again, changing in coaching staff, they might change things up a little bit here. That's why I have him a little bit lower than this week. Usually he's like a low-end wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues. For this week, wide receiver 4 option. Darius Slayton, low-end wide receiver 5. He was hurt last week here. Sorry, guys. He was hurt last week a little bit here. Obviously, he's not 100% right now. But, again, he's a desperate flex play for fantasy. Going to the Cowboy side, CeeDee Lamb. I still like him as a high wide receiver 2. You saw the last couple weeks now is that unless he scores a touchdown, CD is kind of capped on his upside in fantasy right now, and that's a big part. That's a big important part to me. If he's able to score, he's a high wide receiver 1, absolutely. But for me, high end wide receiver 2, still a really good play, just like Malik Neighbors. But the upside for both these guys are capped right now with their quarterback situations. Jalen Tolbert, again, boomer bust, wide receiver 5, touchdown or bust, and that's kind of what he was this past week. Tight end wise, Thayer Johnson, mid tight end 2. I'm okay with him this week here as a sleeping option. If you're desperate for a tight end, Luke Schoonmaker, similar thing. Jake Ferguson could play, but if not, Luke Schoonmaker has that sleeper appeal just because of how good the Cowboys are with using their quarterbacks, their tight ends in the offense. So, all right, over to the night game, and it's probably the most exciting game of the entire weekend to some people. At least to me, as a Dolphins fan. But in general, this is probably the most, in terms of competitiveness, this is probably one of the better games to go for. So, all right, quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa, high-end QB2. I am a little worried. Cold weather game outside. Packers secondary has done really well against quarterbacks in recent months. I don't know if this is a make it or break it game for the Dolphins this week. So we're going to see if Tua can handle taking it to the next level, because he's had some easy opponents the last few weeks, and he's performed well, and we love that for fantasy. But outdoor game, competitive secondary, let's see if Tua can handle it. But again, he's not a QB1 for me. He's low in QB. He's a high in QB2 at best. I think the upside's there, but the floor play is a nervous wreck for me this week. Jordan Love, low in QB1 in fantasy. Miami secondary has allowed a lot of passing touchdowns in the recent weeks here after being very good early on in the season here. Jordan Love will make things happen. Again, it's risky, but Jordan Love finds ways to make touchdowns in fantasy, even though he probably will throw a pick in this game. Devon Achane, mid RB1, touch his receiving role in the offense makes him such a valuable asset to this Dolphins team and for your fantasy teams that he's got to be an RB1 option still for fantasy. Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, low-end RB4s. I think they're touchdown or bust kind of running backs. They don't have the upside. Both guys are not seeing enough playing time or touches to be a valuable asset. Josh Jacobs, high-end RB2. Miami has done better in recent weeks against running backs here. Again, I think this could be a very high, passing outing for both teams this week here, where Josh Jacobs kind of gets left in the dirt a little bit more. I know he's been really good in recent weeks, and again, he still probably is a must-start option. I think there's going to be other running backs this week here who are, I think, have a higher upside in terms of finishing as an RB1 option. For the wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, mid wide receiver 2. Again, his upside just continues to be capped. Like, I thought we were kind of turning the motion on him after last week, and then he plays this game and he had 2 of those 4 touchdowns and also has over 300 yards, almost 300 yards. And Tyreek Hill has under 50 yards. That's not good. That's not what you want. They're not forcing the ball to Tyreek Hill, or if they are, then just not. Defenses are focusing on Tyreek Hill and forcing Miami to do other things. So for me, Tyreek Hill is a mid wide receiver 2. There's upside there, but the floor play does scare me often from being an actual wide receiver 1. Jalen Waddle is a low-end wide receiver 3 flex option. Again, I don't want to buy in that his 100-yard game is going to be a continuating thing week after week moving forward now, but I kind of put him in that he's got the upside, but his floor is really low, and I'm hoping that the upside kicks in again in a matchup where it could be more Packers leading early and allowing Miami to kind of come back more. Hopefully that's not the case, but I could see that happening more than likely. For me, on the Packers side of things, Jaden Reed, I still have him as a low wide receiver 2. I think this is a good bounce back week for him. Miami has allowed production to slot wide receivers in recent weeks for fantasy production here. And I think without Romeo Doubs potentially playing, as I mentioned earlier in the show, with a concussion, Reed could end up having more targets and a bigger workload, and hopefully doing more with that, actually, because it's been a struggle to start Jaden Reed. And again, I don't think he's a must-start option, but I do like him bouncing back this week. Christian Watson, high wide receiver 4. For me, he's like a boomer bust play that has that upside play, but the floor we saw last week, 3 targets, 0 yards, not great. Tight ends, Jonnu Smith, mid tight end 1. I mean, he's just performing at a high level right now, and I like him. Packers have not been good against tight ends, and Jonnu Smith has been a productive member of the Dolphins in recent weeks here, has touchdowns in multiple weeks now, having high yardage. He's a tight end I want in fantasy. Tucker Kraft, low tight end 1. Miami has struggled in more recent weeks against fantasy tight ends here. I think without Romeo Doubs on the field, Tucker Kraft could end up having a little bit bigger role in fantasy. And then last but not least here, Black Friday game here, guys. Raiders versus Chiefs. Chiefs are the home team. We don't know who the quarterback is for the Raiders yet. It could be Aiden O'Connell, could be Desmond Ridder. Probably both at QB3s this week here. I'm not trusting either one in the starting lineup. Pat Mahomes at home, mid QB1. I like him on prime time, being able to perform at a high level, and he's been doing much better in recent weeks now, which has been great for fantasy managers. Running backs, I don't know who the Raiders are going to have at running back. It could be Alexander Madison back. It could be Zamir White back. But if not, if it is Alexander Madison back, mid RB3, if it's not, Mir Abdullah, high-end RB4, he would move up to a mid RB3 if Madison were to miss this game and Zamir White. So again, the Chiefs running backs are another mucky situation here. We don't know if Isaiah Pacheco is going to play this week here. They might give him one more week and then see what happens here. Again, this probably would have been the week I would have brought him back last week, because Carolina is such an easy run matchup, even though it didn't end up that way. But Kareem Hunt, mid RB2, I think his value drops a little bit. I think he needs a touchdown, but I still like him as a RB2 option this coming week. Isaiah Pacheco is a low RB3. I don't think in this first game back, if this is his first game back, that they work him into 15 plus touches. I still think they're going to give Kareem Hunt another week or two and allow Isaiah Pacheco to ease himself back in, and then Samaje P. Ryan would only be a low RB4 if Isaiah Pacheco doesn't play. Wide receiver wise, I still like Jacoby Myers. I know I mentioned it with somebody on the show earlier about Jacoby Myers, but I still think that target share is there in that offense there, and you can't run on the Chiefs. The only thing you can really do is try to throw on them, and I think Jacoby Myers will see a big target share in this game here. Still a solid flex option, high-end wide receiver 3. Trey Tucker. I don't really like him in this game still here. I think the Chiefs have been really good at stopping the deep ball downfield, and Tucker has kind of been more of that downfield option to kind of spread the defense a little bit more. And I think for him is more of a boom or bust play. Wide receivers wide, DeAndre Hopkins, low end wide receiver 2. I like him this week here. Raiders have allowed wide receiver 1s to produce against them in recent weeks here. We saw what Courtland Sutton was able to do last week. DeAndre Hopkins has, Pat Mahomes' eye in the red zone, and you've seen it in the last few weeks with the touchdowns he's been getting. And Xavier Worthy, mid wide receiver 4, I think he's going to be a boom or bust play. He's going to either have a really good week, or unfortunately it's like what we seen last week, where it's just kind of mediocre at best and very minimal usage, and the touchdown there's no touchdown for him, which doesn't help him out. And finally, tight ends. Travis Kelce, I'm still mid tight end 1. I don't really have him as a high tight end 1 right now. I know he's had a history of doing well against the Raiders, but the Chiefs continue to show us that Travis Kelce does not need to be the top option in this offense here, that they can spread the ball out around a little bit more, which for me, it puts Kelce from a high tight end 1 to a mid tight end 1 in fantasy, but he still has a really great matchup and should still see a nice target share in this game here. And then Noah Gray, I have him as a mid tight end 2 this week. It's probably my highest I've had him all season here. I had him as a low tight end 1s tight end 2s the last few weeks here, but I think this could be another game where I think Noah Gray finishes with like 30, 40 yards and a touchdown for fantasy. And because the Raiders have been so bad at stopping fantasy tight ends this season, especially allowing them to score touchdowns. And then Brock Bowers, still have him as a high-end tight end 1. Again, if it goes another week, that might change things, but I still like Brock Bowers. I still think this team will lead through Brock Bowers here, even with switching away from Gardner Minshew. I still like Bowers as a really strong option in fantasy. And the Chiefs have been really bad against fantasy tight ends this season, so he should be able to produce for us in fantasy overall. But that is going to wrap things up for us tonight, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode here. It's a really quick 30 minutes to get as a lot of production as possible out there. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to tune back in later this week, hopefully on Friday, as we go through those Sunday and Monday games for fantasy football. And again, we'll have a lot more updates in terms of injuries and all that kind of stuff here. So we want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Tune in Monday and most weeks Thursday for fantasy football analysis and breakdowns of waiver wires and game breakdowns. So we thank you guys all for listening. Tune in until next time, everyone, and have a great
back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark Kents. I've been feeling super duper. How the heck they know the future? Come with me, don't be a loser. Grass is green like Cooper Scoopers. Clueless analysts don't do the half of this. In fact, I'm backing this by asking